want to start off by just telling the student body a little bit about yourself and then maybe a little bit about why you decided to run for president?
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you guys having me, Kate, and everyone else here at SGTV and Daily Gamecock. It's an honor. A little bit about me, I'm Patton Byers. Of course, I'm running to be your next student body president. I wouldn't be here if not. I'm born and raised in Lexington, South Carolina. So like I was talking about earlier, 2 exits down the road, literally. So South Carolina means a lot to me and my family. I'm a 3rd generation Gamecock. My grandmother went here, my parents met here, my brother and sister, my brother met his wife here. So we have a long history of loving South Carolina, sometimes crying too much about sports. We usually say in our family, and I'm sure a lot of Gamecocks fans alike, is there's always next year, but nevertheless. Why I'm here is because I'm running on issues that are personal to me. Number 1, Wi-Fi. I've been kicked out of 2 exams just past semester because of our poor Wi-Fi on our campus. Number 2, our safety. It's personal to me. I have a girlfriend on campus. I don't want my girlfriend walking home at 1 a.m. at night because she's usually in the library that late as a pre-med. Not safe. It's concerning. Number 3, the student experience. Look, I know we're right near the horseshoe. We see the first year banners, the number 1 first year experience, and that's great, and we don't deny that, but there's a reason we don't have the best 4-year experience and we don't have a banner for it. It's because we don't have it. So I want to work on these issues because not just only they're important issues for the student body, but because they're personal to me.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about, what your experience has been so far in student government and the different roles you've held?
Yeah, absolutely. So my experience in student government was actually quite unique. So my freshman year, very early on, I applied for a Senate vacant seat. So typically whenever you're elected in this time, year before as a freshman, of course, you're not on campus, so you don't run. So I was like, well, shoot, I'm going to go for a vacant seat. Went there, did not get approved by the Senate Powers Committee, I believe it was. So I was like a lot of other students who get denied from student government, I didn't know where to go. I didn't know how I wanted to serve, and a big part of me and my family is service and leadership, and servant leadership specifically. So I was a little bit lost, like a lot of other students. But somehow I found some friends. Towns Holland, who was a good friend of mine from Columbia, he was the Legislative Action Network chair, so that basically the state lobbying agency, part of our government relations team, and he was like, you should apply for land. So I did that and thankfully got that, and that's how I met Reedy Newton, and she was our government relations chair, helped her out with her campaign a lot, and somehow, some way ended up being her chief of staff as a freshman after she won her campaign, stayed on and worked hard with her and loved the experience with Reedy. I consider her a sister to me. And then Emmy decided she wanted to run, and I was all on board for her as well. She was the deputy chief of staff to me as chief of staff to Reedy. So I was her campaign manager and worked through that whole process, and we're proud of everything she's done. She has really showed me how to be the best servant leader you can be on a campus. So I applaud Emmy for everything she's done, and now I'm here where I'm running for student body president. I've learned a lot from being chief of staff these past 2 years and from the people who have came before me, and I hope I could do that for the next generation of Gamecocks as well.
Yeah. What do you think makes you a good candidate for president?
I think for one is my ability to convey a message. I want to get out in the student body as much as possible. I talked about this to a friend of mine just a couple of days ago. I'm not ending at the bill of the buck where at the end of campaign season, that's the last time you're going to hear from me. That will just be the beginning. And one thing I want to do is I want to go to organizations, if elected, after. I want to make it codified in student government. I want to talk to senators about how each executive officer should at least every month go to 2 different organizations every month. Because you shouldn't be hearing from just the same exact people you're always going to hear. We naturally get in a position, you hear from all these students in February, and then right after you're elected, all you hear from are your executive officers, and you hear from everyone else in student government. And that's good. But we deserve great on our campus. So I want to hear from every single student, and that's one thing. I want to be a listener, I want to collaborate, and I'm going to communicate with the rest of the student body.
Yeah. You mentioned a little bit, being the chief of staff for 2 different student body presidents. What do you think about that work experience could help you in this role?
Absolutely. I think one is seeing at a first-hand glance of what the role of student body president is like, what the workload is like, what it's like every night where you're working hard till 12 o'clock or 1 a.m., how to work with administration, which is a difficulty for anyone, frankly. So being able to see firsthand what it's like to be student body president, and also how to deal with the internal issues that we may have. So dealing with Senate legislation, dealing with memos, dealing with all the internal things that we have, I've had the first-hand glance at. So I'm ready for the external. I'm ready to start fighting for the students. I'm ready to go into battle, and I plan to win those battles because I view the position of student body president as a change agent. You should be a change agent as soon as you walk in the door. What are the 3 things you want to do? And you should get them done. I applaud Emmy Thompson. I think she's been one of our best student body presidents ever because what she campaigned on, she has gotten done. I plan to be the same, if not more.
Yeah. And you briefly touched on, what topics you want to focus on going in if you get the presidency and whatnot. Can you go a little bit more into your goals and I guess what steps you would take and maybe why you think students care about them?
Absolutely. Well, I think for me, I'll go for the 3-pronged process of our 3 big pillars: infrastructure, safety, student experience. Number 1, infrastructure. Our Wi-Fi is not good. It's not. Like I said before, I was kicked out of 2 exams and 1 quiz just last semester. And I understand I'm not the exception, I'm the rule. I'm the rule. This is what's happening all over our campus. It is not just me. So we need to work for students all over campus to have the best, consistent, and reliable Wi-Fi possible. We are 21st generation students. We deserve 21st century infrastructure and Wi-Fi. That also does not stop with academic buildings. We need to make sure we have the best academic buildings on campus. So look, I understand we're probably not going to have all of ours look like Darla. I'm not naive. But that doesn't mean that we can have buildings where, for example, I'm a poli-sci student, so in Gambrell, some of my tables literally have a slant where if I put a water or coffee, it will slide off. We can do better, and we deserve better. We're also going to work better for on-campus housing for upperclassmen and transfer students who deserve it. I know, for example, 650 Lincoln, I was talking to a freshman just a couple weeks ago, where they were promised and told they can live on campus at 650 Lincoln, and that's their privilege, and that's what they could do. Just a few weeks ago, they got an email saying they can't because we overextended our applications and enrollment, so now freshmen are now living at 650 Lincoln. That's not okay. We should not be doing that. That's, once again, proving the point that we don't have, look, we might have that great first-year experience, but that 4-year experience is not there. So we failed inherently upperclassmen and transfer students. Transfer students are 33% of our student body. They deserve to know what's going on our campus before they reach our campus. Last year, they were not told when parking spots are due, the payment. They were not told about on-campus or off-campus living options, and they were almost set up to fail. They don't deserve that. We're also going to do safety. Safety is important to me because it's personal to me. My sister's boyfriend's dad, he was an adjunct professor at the University of South Carolina, Darrell Moore School. The first time I met him, he talked to me about, Patton, I teach Monday, 7 to 9 p.m. weekly, and I'm concerned for students walking at Darla Tunnel. They walk to wherever, Senate, Gervais, maybe they're parked in Bull Street. I'm concerned because it's dark. It is awful for his students. He would sometimes let his students out early to make sure that they could have sunlight. He would sometimes even walk with students. He would even pair men with women students to ensure that they were safe. That's not a professor's job, number 1, but number 2, that should never be happening on our campus. The good news is I serve on the safety council with USCPD and members like Sergeant Tevapaw, and we have started to advocate for this, and I have gotten word that more than likely the Darla Tunnel will they will have better lighting starting next semester. So we're not just talking about this, we're getting things done. We're also going to do student experience. Professors, it is not fair inherently that we have a due date as students, but professors don't have a due date for when they should grade your quizzes, your discussion boards, your exams. Fundamentally, it's a 2-way street, and it's only been right now a 1-way street for students, or for professors. So we're going to advocate that professors have due dates as well for your grades, because it's not fair. We're also going to work for mental health days, because we understand that every student struggles with mental health. We have a mental health crisis, not just on our campus, but across this nation. We need to ensure students have a way to take a day off if they choose to.
Yeah. Some of your topics, they're sort of wide administrative things such as Wi-Fi or on-campus housing. So what steps do you think you would take to kind of help achieve that goal?
Well, when we're talking about Wi-Fi, the big thing for me is we have the new CIO of coming in March 1st. So if I'm elected, that would be February 21st. So I'll have a few days beforehand. I plan to meet with the new CIO day 1, day I'm elected, day I'm inaugurated, which would be March 20th, and I'm going to advocate like hell. I will be knocking on their door. I will be talking to them constantly. I will be sending emails because it is something the students deserve. You can't be a successful student without consistent and reliable Wi-Fi. You are going to hear me say that all the time the next few weeks because I'm not just saying it to say it, I'm saying it because it's true. So that's one thing I'm going to do. I understand how to work with administration, being a chief of staff, but I also understand that when administration says no, that doesn't mean I'm going to stop. I'm going to be a change agent for the university because as student body president, that's what you should be. You should not take no for an answer. You should keep working, and fighting for the student body. Because at the end of the day, I don't serve administration. I serve you.
Yeah. We've talked a lot about, looking at outside of student government and beyond of student government.
Sure.
But within student government, are there any issues that you would like to address or fix?
Sometimes I think we get so bogged down in internal issues every single year, and then inherently we don't worry about the external issues. So as student body president, my job will be focusing on external issues, but that doesn't mean I'm going to forget about internal as well. Student body president, you're also student government president, and I understand that. One thing I've done the past few years as chief of staff is really run the internal side of the student body president's office, so I understand what it's like, whether that's with memos and whether that's working with Senate legislation. One thing we're going to do is I'm going to work with whoever the speaker is, and we will work with them on making tangible changes and options and recommendations to administration with Senate. No longer the days we're going to vote on things that frankly aren't affecting the students, that should be handled a few streets down the road at the State House, because we're going to handle things that are affecting students on a day-to-day basis. So that's something internally we're going to focus on.
What do you think is something that the student body wants out of student government?
Results. They want solutions, not excuses. And that's what we're going to give them. We're going to be a change agent in the student government offices and in the LSC. You guys are going to see action, not talk. And that's exactly what the students deserve. Because so many times they are promised, you're going to get this one day, or this is what will happen. And I think starting last year, we finally have seen a way to make this done. Like I said, student body president Amy Thompson has done a great job at keeping her promises. And I pledge to not just keep my promises, but I'm going to build off of hers and get mine done as well.
Yeah. Why do you think that happens, I guess, in the years prior where, promises have been made, but then nothing's been fulfilled through them?
It's hard to say. Honestly, I wasn't here, so I don't know. I think one thing is, I think administration and faculty will tell student body presidents and student government and student leaders in general, no. And you just stop. I don't take no for an answer. If you know me, you know that's true. I'm going to keep working until, it doesn't matter if I'm going to bug them, if I have to call them at 9 p.m., if I have to go to their house, I don't know, I don't care, but I'm going to get something done because results matter more than talk. Effectiveness is more important than ineffectiveness, and that's what we're going to have to do. I want to make sure that student government sets an example of how to get things done on not just campus, but we set the example for how to do things statewide and nationally, because at the end of the day, we're the next generation of leaders.
Yeah. One concern every year is, how active the student body is or how engaged they are with student government elections. So I guess, how do you plan to engage the student body?
I think for one is talking about issues that they actually care about. We're going to talk about Wi-Fi because they understand if they can't be successful students without consistent and reliable Wi-Fi. We're going to talk about safety because students are concerned at night with the lighting or whether that's with blue boxes actually working and their effectiveness, or whether that's with Uber discounts and staying safe off of our campus as well. Sometimes safety doesn't always mean on-campus issues. Students aren't always on campus. Students aren't living on campus because, like I told you beforehand, they can't even have an option to live on campus. So we need to make sure students are safe, not just on our campus, but off our campus. And that means working with the greater Columbia community. That means setting up meetings with Mayor Rickman. And we're gonna not only just set up those meetings, but we're gonna have actual meaningful conversations about what we can do, not only on campus, but off campus, say for example in 5 Points.
Yeah. Why do you think students should vote for you?
I think if they want results, not talk, if they want solutions, not excuses, they should vote for me because they understand Wi-Fi is an issue. They understand they are 21st generation students and they need 21st century technology, information, and Wi-Fi. They also understand safety is at the utmost concern of every single student. Like I said, I have a girlfriend. I've heard from Courtney, my running mate, that how often so many students are concerned about the lighting, walking late at night. We're going to make sure that gets done. We're also going to make sure the student experience is the best it could possibly be. We have 564 student organizations, and each one is unique. We need to make sure, one, they get funding, and two, they have every single resource that they need to be the best organization possible. We're going to make sure that every student body or every student member has the chance to join an organization and find their home, because everyone should have the right to be included on our campus.
Yeah. Is there anything that I didn't ask you or that we didn't talk about that you would like to mention to the student body now?
I can't think of anything. The only thing I can think of is I'm excited to meet so many of you. I've already met some of you beforehand. February 20th and February 21st are our voting days. You can vote as early as 9 a.m. and as late as February 21st at 5 p.m. I would be honored. It'd be the honor of a lifetime to serve as your next student body president, and I'm going to get things done for you. You can take it to the bank. When I say something, I mean it, I say it, and it will get done. I hope next year that the next person who will be interviewing with you can say, President Byers got things done, and that's what we're going to do as well.
So if you could just start off by, introducing yourself and talking a little bit, why you're running for vice president.
Yeah, my name's Courtney. I'm from Lexington, South Carolina. I'm a military kid, so I actually moved here from a little small town called Chugiak, Alaska, a little north of Anchorage, my sophomore year of high school. So I've kind of bounced around a little bit and ended up in South Carolina and decided to call USC my home. It's the longest place I've ever lived, and this was one of the best decisions I've ever made. And so in coming here, I realized I wanted to make a difference on campus and started that by getting involved in student government and wanted to just do more and do more. And I realized pretty early on that this was a position that I wanted to do. I wanted to increase communication and transparency with students while fixing tangible changes that we see around campus. Some of the big ones are Wi-Fi, just in general, the student experience, and safety. Safety is a big one. Being a woman on campus, I'm always peering over my shoulder to see who's coming, or I call my boyfriend if I'm walking through a dark space. And I just want to make sure that every student has a good experience on campus. And those are three really big areas that need to be improved.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about, what your experience has been like so far in student government and just the different roles that you've held?
Yeah. So my freshman year, I actually was in freshman council, so in the vice president's branch. So I've had a little bit of experience within this branch. And in there, I was on the community outreach committee and worked with so many amazing members that are currently off doing big things at the university. A few of them are actually still on my staff today. And we did a lot of things with connecting with the greater Columbia community, which is something that I'm currently running on as well. So still a very big area of interest of mine. And then about January of last year, I was approached by Cameron Eubanks, our current speaker, and he asked, hey, do you want to run my campaign? So I was a campaign manager last year and got to experience the campaign season. So I've gotten to experience both sides of it now. And I currently serve as his chief of staff. So it's been one of the most amazing experiences that I've ever had. I get to work with all of the senators and listen to their legislative goals and work with them and plan their events and just make their thoughts and their dreams a reality.
Yeah. What makes you think that you're a good candidate for vice president?
I'm a student, and I think that's such an important thing, is you have to be involved in the student body to know the problems that everybody has in order to solve them. Some really big things that had happened this past semester is I'm a leadership and service ambassador, so I work specifically with off-campus housing. So the past 2 weeks, especially, I've been working with parents, upset parents, and I don't blame them because they've been told that their child doesn't have a spot on campus, and so now they're rushing to try to find off-campus living. At Williams-Brice, I was downstairs getting a Coke, as everybody else does, and someone's phone died, and they're like, what am I gonna do? And they had no idea we had phone chargers in the stadium. They had no idea that had been implemented. And then that exact same game, we were leaving, and a student was crying on the sidewalk and didn't know how they were gonna get home. They had no idea that we had shuttle services that could take them to and from campus. And so I really wanted to increase the communication that we have with students. We have so many amazing initiatives that are put into place already, and the students don't know about it. And so I want to make sure that students know about our past initiatives while also gaining knowledge about our new initiatives that are coming up as well.
Yeah. What about your experience so far in student government makes you think that you'd be good for the role of vice president?
Yeah, so specifically in the speaker's branch, I'm the chief of staff, so I work with all of our senators on making sure that their events happen. And I think that is very similar to what the vice president position is. You're working with people in student government, you're working with all the programming initiatives that they want to implement, including your own, and making it happen. You are communicating that with the student body, which is exactly what I do in the speaker's branch. And I think I work so well already with everybody in student government that I just want to make sure that anything that they want to do, it gets out there. And that's what I've done with Senate. One of the events that we put on this past semester was Food for Thought. We served over 1,500 chicken minis to the student body, and we heard their problems on campus. And so just doing that, I've been able to experience what issues all students see on campus and how can we change them.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit more, you mentioned them earlier, but about your main goals that you would like to achieve as vice president, and then also, why did you decide to go after these goals?
Yes, so Pat and I are running on 3 pillars: infrastructure, safety, and student experience. Specifically with infrastructure, I am very, very passionate about being able to live on campus. And that kind of ties into student experience as well. We constantly talk about our #1 first-year experience, and part of that is being able to live in the dorms and live on campus. You're able to access everything here on campus very conveniently, and when you move off campus, you kind of are taken away from the student body a little bit. You lose that. And I knew so many students that wanted to live on campus, and they weren't given that option. And I want to work with administration and make sure that we are setting enough dorm rooms aside that we can be able to house more on-campus students already, instead of saving those for the freshman class. I highly agree that bringing in big freshman classes is great, but we need to make sure that we're taking care of the students on campus already. Moving into safety, this past semester I worked on a lot of initiatives that were actually run through the Vice President's branch, one being Safety Week. And I went on a safety walk with USCPD, and we were down at Maxie Gregg Park, and we noticed that there were no blue lights on the other side of the road. And I was like, I could have sworn I've seen so many students that have walked on this side. What happens if something does happen? Who are they going to be able to communicate with? Who are they going to be able to contact? And USCPD was like, oh, that's Columbia. Like, that's Columbia's jurisdiction. And I was like, well, we're still USC students on the other side of the road. So we really want to build those connections with the City of Columbia to make sure that your safety needs are met everywhere, not just on campus, but off campus as well. And they're willing to work with us to make sure that those are implemented. And then student experience. One of the big things that I've gotten to work on this year and experience firsthand is funding student organizations. We have over $186,000 that get funded to student organizations, and all of that money went away in first semester. And that is amazing that we were able to fund so many student organizations, but we need to move past that. We need to expand that. Student organizations should be able to get funding first semester and second semester. So we want to work with administration to see if we can actually up that fee and be able to fund student organizations all year round. We did just pass a piece of legislation that caps student organizations at $10,000 an organization, but we want to make sure that that money just doesn't run out first semester, that moves past it. And one of those things, we've kind of gone through all the options that we can at this point. So upping the amount of money that we're able to allocate is most likely our next step.
Yeah. One of your first goals you talked about, making sure that upperclassmen have a chance for on-campus housing. I guess what steps would you take to go about securing that for them or working towards finding a way to secure that for them?
Yes, I think one of the big things, working with Senate, I've gotten to experience that side of researching all of the goals that we want to accomplish. And one of the big things is data. Looking at the data, seeing how many students wanted to live on campus and how many were denied. Again, I work with the Leadership and Service Center. We have a tracker of everybody that calls us and voices their concerns about off-campus living. I would bring that to administration and let them see how many students do want to live on campus and just urge them to put more rooms aside. I am also an honor student. It's one of the great communities that I'm involved here on campus. And I wouldn't say necessarily promised, but we're told that we can live in 650 our upperclassmen years. And I know so many honor students now are being told, oh, actually you can't live in 650. We don't have any room. Well, where's this room going? our honors classes haven't grown exponentially. We should have the room. And so now they're trying to fix the mistake, and honor students are being housed in Park Place. Well, Park Place is one of the only apartments on campus that other students can live in. So now they don't have housing. So we just need to show them the data and show them the numbers of how many students want to live on campus, and show them the experiences that they're missing out on when they're not living on campus.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier that you feel like all the goals you want to go after are very tangible goals. What about them makes you think that they're tangible or achievable?
I think Pat and I have already worked so closely with administration in these chief of staff positions that we've built connections. And we know that these are things that administration will listen to us on. And so we want to make sure Wi-Fi is one of them. Wi-Fi is such a major issue, and it can be resolved if we put hotspots around campus. And if we show professors the data, or show administration the data, that students are being kicked out of their exams, and they can't learn adequately if they're being kicked out of their exams or kicked out of their classes. So when we kind of sat down and came up with those solutions, we weren't coming out with outrageous decisions. We want to come up with ideas that can be solved and then build upon that.
Are there any issues within student government that you would like to work on?
Specifically within my branch, yes. Like I said, I was a member of freshman council, and my retention rate from my class was very, very low. I think we only had about 10 people out of 40 that had stayed in student government this next year. I am planning on completely revitalizing all of freshman council. I really want to work with Senate to change the codes so that freshman council gets more of an opportunity to work within specific branches, so they know the opportunities that they have within student government the next year, so that we can retain as many members as we can, and also so that we have members that know what they're doing and can bring other people in from other organizations that they work with, so we can make sure we have the most diverse student organization here on campus.
Yeah. What do you think the student body is looking for out of student government?
They're looking for transparency. I think in the past we have made big promises to them and we have not followed through on that. And they are looking for transparency and communication. And that specifically falls within my branch. We want to make sure that we're communicating with the student body all the things that we're doing, while also being transparent about things that can't get done. We're not going to promise them something that we can't get done.
Yeah. You talk about communicating with the student body. You know, there's always concern that students aren't participating enough in student government elections and whatnot. But so I guess like during this election season, how do you plan on engaging students?
We want to reach as many students as we can. We are going to so many different student organizations, and we're really taking that time to, one, tell them what we want to get done, but two, listening to what they want to get done as well. And we want to give them the opportunity to tell us the issues that they see on campus, because we can only be involved with so much. So there are obviously things that we're not going to know about. So we want to make sure that we take that time to build those connections with students so that they're comfortable coming to us if we get elected to fix their issues in the future.
Yeah. Why should students vote for you?
I think that students should vote for me because I am in a very unique situation coming from my military child background. I know what it's like to be a new student. I know what it's like to be moving here. So I know both sides of being kind of an out-of-state student and being an in-state student. I know what it's like being a transfer student. And I want to make sure that we are serving all students on campus. We're not just serving one demographic of students, but all demographics. And I will make sure that I'm fighting for every student here on campus.
Yeah. Is there anything that I didn't ask you or we didn't get to talk about that you would like to say to the student body now?
I think I just wanted to say how much I love this university. I have been so grateful and so fortunate to be able to experience this university, and I want to make sure everybody has the same great experience that I'm having on campus. And I pledge that to students. I pledge to every student that if you want to come up to us with an issue, come up to us with an issue. We will help you. We will help find a solution. We will help find a place for you on campus. Whether that be student organization or another club here on campus, we will find your home.
So if you could start off by just introducing yourself and talking a little bit about, why you decided to run for speaker.
Yeah, so my name is Maura Hamilton. I am a sophomore nursing major here, and I was elected into the 115th Senate as a representative for the College of Nursing. since then, it's honestly been the most rewarding experience of my life. It was the first time that I felt that I was able to really make an impact on campus, and I've really loved the experience of just getting to interact with so many different students in our student body as well as the faculty. And I knew that I really wanted to be able to take my leadership to the next level and be able to make even more of an impact, and so that's why I chose to run for speaker.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit more about your experience so far in student government and maybe, how that has prepared for you to take on this role or maybe go into this role?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I was elected for the College of Nursing, and when I was elected, I was the only senator elected. The rest of the seats were vacant spots. So that was definitely an interesting experience for me, just learning how to get like a group that is typically underrepresented in student government to have their voices be heard and to be able to advocate for the students that are nursing majors. Since then, I've also served as a voting member on basically almost every committee. I've been a member of sustainability, I've been a member of powers and responsibilities, I've been a member of judiciary, I'm on rules now, and I've also been a member of the finance committee. I recently was elected to become the judiciary chairwoman, which is very excited, and I'm really just so happy I get to be able to fill that role. And I also had the experience of serving on our finance ad hoc committee on financial reform. That definitely was an amazing experience, and we actually created the most comprehensive research report that Student Senate has given to date. Overall, I feel like because I had such a diverse variety of ways I was involved in Senate, that's really going to prepare me to be able to take on the role of speaker, because I know what every committee does. I've had a direct impact. I've been a part of legislation that impacts sustainability and the codes and finance, all of that stuff, and I know exactly what they need in order to be supported.
Yeah. What about you personally makes you a good candidate for speaker?
Yeah, so I am a huge proponent of servant leadership. If you know me, I talk about this all the time. To my core, I think that a great leader is one that really just gets for lack of a better word, down and dirty. They should be somebody that is going out and speaking to the people that they're working for. And I view the job of speaker as I am serving the student body. I'm obviously going to go in there with initiatives that I want to work on, but I made sure that when I was building my campaign platform that it was issues that actually were things that the student body was passionate about. And during my term, I would like to be able to keep an open mind and make sure that I'm doing things like office hours and increasing organization outreach so that I can really hear what students want to have fixed on campus, and I can do my best to work towards that.
Yeah, you mentioned different initiatives that you would seek in office. Can you go a little bit more into what are the main goals that you would like to go after as speaker, and then maybe what steps you would take to achieve them?
Yeah, so I split my campaign platform into 4 different sections. I have for the Gamecock campus, for the Gamecock citizen, for the Gamecock classroom, and then for you, which I touched on, I guess, in my previous answer. Classroom, a lot of it is going to be I'd like to build a better working relationship with Faculty Senate. As a speaker, I would like to see if I could set up some one-on-one meetings with the Faculty Senate and just kind of understand their processes, how they work, and how Student Senate can collaborate with them to pass legislation that's really going to be effective to take place in the classroom. I'd also like to work on things like adding mental health days to our academic calendar and mandating that professors have to post their syllabi on Blackboard before the first day of classes, just so students know what they're getting into, what textbooks they need to buy, things like that. Something that I'm also really passionate about is financial transparency. Obviously, I served on the Finance Ad Hoc Committee, so I've done a lot on internal finances, but I'd like to make sure that fees are more clearly disclosed this year. This applies not only to classes, so making sure that textbook fees are posted on self-service when you're signing up for classes and things like that. But moving on to my campus initiative, I'd like to make sure that the Student Health Center is more clearly disclosing fees. I know I've had personal experiences where I went and I thought something wasn't going to cost that much, and then I got a bill and I was like, wow, this costs a lot of money. And as a college student, I don't necessarily have that much extra money to be able to just drop on random bills at random times. I'd also like to work on increasing our Wi-Fi on campus. I've passed legislation on this in the past, and I'd like to push for more legislation on that in the future. And also working on getting Wi-Fi in our outdoor spaces, like over in Davis Field where all of our chairs and tables are. For the citizen, I'd like to do a lot of internal reform on our codes. I saw how easy it was to be able to do things like that when I was on Finance Ad Hoc, and we basically did a total revision of the chapter of the codes that focused on internal finances, and I would like for there to be an ad hoc committee that focused on all of the codes. I'd like to just go through, honestly, from page 1 to 108 and look at every single sentence and make sure that everything that we have in there is clear, concise, and it's easy for the average student to read. And then most importantly is the for you aspect. Obviously, it's great that I'm going in with all these initiatives and I have the experience that has me prepared to take on those goals, but I want to make sure that what I'm doing is actually indicative of what the student experience is and what the students want. So I'd like to put a large emphasis on the fact that senators, when elected, they're representing their constituents. They need to make sure that they're going out, they're talking to organizations that are specific to their college, to their major, they're doing tabling on Green Street, they're holding open town halls, I'm holding personal office hours in different locations on campus, so that students, if they have an issue or even if they have an idea for Senate, we want to hear it.
Yeah. You mentioned one of your goals with mental health was making sure that there's more transparency as far as fees goes. How do you think the mental health office could be better at being more transparent with fees, and I guess what should they be doing differently?
Yeah, obviously any answer I can give on this is going to have to be something that I have from only my own personal experience. If elected speaker, that is something that I'd like to work to do. I'd like to work with administrators in the mental health facilities and stuff like that. But I would say from a basis level, like, for example, if you're going to be getting some sort of laboratory testing or some sort of diagnostic testing where it costs a certain amount of money, there should be some sort of thing that's given to a student, or they're just informed that, hey, if you're not on the university health plan, this will cost you money out of pocket. Just so they're aware of that, and then they know, oh, if I have insurance and that can be fulfilled somewhere else outside of campus, they know that they can take the steps to do that and they won't have to pay that fee out of pocket.
Yeah. You also mentioned, wanting to work on the relationship between faculty senate and student government, so that you guys are, creating policies that are beneficial and stuff. What would you say the relationship so far has been like with faculty senate, and I guess where maybe is it lacking?
Yeah, I would say that in my personal experience as a senate, I just haven't had much experience with faculty senate. I honestly, before I joined senate, didn't even know it was a thing. I've heard some things about it through the past year. I've followed some of the articles that you guys have even written about it on the Daily Gamecock. But I think that that's like a really interesting part of our campus, because those are faculty members who are taking the time outside of their job to come and serve our community. And so they have the same passion that student senators do. And so I want to make sure that we're joining groups of people together that have these similar passions, because the more manpower, the more stuff that's eventually going to get done.
Yeah. How do you plan on creating a positive environment within the Senate?
Yeah, this is something that I am huge on. I came in here knowing that I wanted to make sure that I was just a supporter to all senators. I made the decision not to run on a ticket, and my decision for that was just because I didn't want to have to pick any senator. I want to make sure that I go in with an open mind with every single person that's elected, and I'm able to support them as individually as possible. I think one of the best ways to do this is putting an emphasis on the fact that senators are there to represent their constituents. If everybody goes in there and they're really working for what's best for a majority of students on campus, they're all going to end up having similar goals. The majority of students on campus have similar things that they want fixed. I'd also like to make sure that I'm like an open toolbox for anybody that needs anything. This can even be outside of Senate. I'm really big on just fostering a positive environment. And my big thing I always say to people that I work with is let me know if you need anything Senate related or not. I want to be the type of speaker where students can reach out to me and be like, I really need help with guidance on faculty that I should reach out to about this legislation. But I also want to be the person that a student could reach out to me and be like, hey, I'm really going through a rough time with this. I'm really having a hard time in school right now. I'm really having a hard time with personal relationships, and I can help them on a friend level.
Yeah. Are there any issues within student government that you would like to work on?
I honestly just want to make sure that we continue to foster a collaborative environment. I think that the executive board this year has done an amazing job. I could talk for like hours about how amazing Emmy, Hannah, Aubriana, and Cameron are. I think that they've done a fantastic job of really like breeding a good environment, and there's been a lot of great collaboration between President's Branch and Senate and Cabinet and all of that great stuff. And so I want to make sure that that trend is continued this year, and I really hope it is, because I'll be working my best to.
Yeah. What do you think the student body is looking for out of student government?
Yeah, I think they're just looking for real impact. I know that before I joined, I tried my best to keep a eye on what student government was doing, but to be quite honest, I wasn't really well educated on what was happening. I want to make sure that, number one, we're increasing education about Senate. I'd like there to be continued Senate Wednesday on the Instagram, things like that, just really accessible platforms for students where they can just look and see, hey, what's going on in student government this week. But also I think one of the biggest ways that you're going to get people to feel a real sense of satisfaction and have faith in student government is to have real effective change on campus. You know, I think this year was an amazing year for student government with the instatement of the Uber discount for the Carolina-Clemson game and the installment of the Chargers in the football stadium, things like that. And I think when students are able to look at something and say, wow, student government worked for me and they did that for me, they're gonna want more of that.
Yeah. Something that's an ongoing concern, I feel like every year, is, you know, the number of students that participate in the election. So I guess, how do you plan on engaging students in student government?
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Sorry. Yeah, my bad. Yes, that's what I meant.
You're fine.
How do you plan engaging students more with student government?
Yeah. So I mentioned this earlier in one of my previous questions, but something that I'd like to put a huge emphasis on this term is organizational outreach. I think that is huge, because when senators are going out to organizations that are specific to their college and their major, they're finding students that are passionate about being involved in extracurriculars on campus, that they're going to these meetings outside of class time. You know, we can do our best to table on Great Street, and that definitely is a great opportunity to a certain extent, but going and meeting students where they are is going to show to the students that we genuinely care about their opinions. Another thing that I'd like to institute is, while tabling, as I mentioned, is great, and I met so many people when we did our Food for Thought initiative, I'd like to make sure that when we're tabling and holding town halls, things like that, that we're focused on a specific issue. I think sometimes students can get a little bit overwhelmed when a senator looks at them and says, what do you want fixed on campus? Because it's like, they could have a million things they want fixed on campus, and how are they going to be able to think of one just off the top of their head? If we sit there and we look at a student and we say, what would you like fixed about Wi-Fi on campus? What would you like fixed about housing on campus? What would you like fixed about our outdoor areas on campus? It gives them a much more specific topic to really think about, and hopefully we'll be able to get a lot more effective feedback on that and find things that we can work on.
Why should students vote for you?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, I am here to serve. I am going into this it's been less than a week, and like every single day I have just been so grateful that I've even been given the opportunity to serve on this campaign so far. I've already met such an incredible amount of people. I've gotten to educate so many people on student government who were not educated on it before, and if elected, I just want to be somebody here for each and every student. I want to make sure that they know that I'm here to serve them, and if they have an issue and they come to me with it, I'm going to work as best as I possibly can to address that issue, and if I can't fix it, I'll direct them in the person that can.
Yeah. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that we didn't talk about that you would like to mention to the student body now?
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, honestly, I just hope that people go out and vote. Obviously, I'd love it for people to vote for me because I will be there to serve them. But at the end of the day, something that's just really important to me is getting that student engagement. So my personal goal of mine is that I want a record number of students to vote this year. We'll see if it happens. But as long as students are opening up the ballot, that's already like 50% of the battle to me. I just want students to really become interactive with student government this year and really have some faith in our student government power.
So if you could just start off by, introducing yourself and talking a little bit, why you are running for treasurer.
Yeah, so I'm Jacob Vaught, and I'm a junior in the engineering college here at USC. I'm primarily running for treasurer because I've put a lot of work into redeveloping all the financial codes for the student government, me and the ad hoc committee. And I think it'd be good to have someone who's able to step up and be able to implement these codes and make sure that the process of transitioning to the new system goes over really smoothly. I'm working with Senate to try to make sure we have a good set of financial people that can help make this process go over smoothly. And I think overall be better for the student org so we have more equity in distribution of the funds and getting more events on campus.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit more about, what your experience in student government has been like so far, and then I guess what positions you've held or roles you've taken on?
Yeah, my experience in student government's been pretty cool. I tried to fill a vacant seat at one point, Senate. I didn't know much about the system at the time, so I didn't get in, but I started learning a little more about it, and then I ran in the actual elections for the engineering college as a senator. I got in 2023. 2023. I can't remember the year. And then I was in, and I started to join the finance committee immediately. Started helping them do their weekly allocations. That's what I've been doing pretty much every week. I've just read all the allocations. And then when Camden Kay and Ian Hurd and Cameron Eubanks and Emmy Thompson came up with, they wanted to create the ad hoc committee to look into the financial state of the of student government. They picked me as chairman because I'd been the one who did most majority of the appropriation bills for finance committee. So I became chairman of the ad hoc committee, and we recently just had a report on that big giant, all that work we've done, all those bills, and our actual report will be coming out in like a week or two.
Yeah. What makes you a good candidate for this position?
I think I'm a good candidate because I've got lots and lots of experience in the finance field. I have lots of connections with different organizations on campus. I understand the system a lot better than the majority of people in Senate, even more than probably the current treasurer and some of the chair people there. Yeah, I think those are the priorities. I know the rules pretty well, and I'm writing the new rules, so I think it's good that the person who's written the new rules, written the new codes, is the one who's actually going to be able to push that through and get it implemented.
Yeah. Can you talk to me a little bit about, what your goals are for this position?
My goals, that's a pretty good question. I have a few goals. I'd like to bring more knowledge to student orgs. So Hannah's done a fantastic job increasing the number of orgs that are requesting funds. I'd like to get that. I'd like to continue that trend and get more and more organizations requesting funding. I'd like to have more events on campus because the majority events right now, or not the majority, a large percent of events happens off campus, and those events cost a lot of money. So I'd really, really like to promote organizations to take these events and bring them on campus because they can affect a larger number of students, and it's cheaper for student government to fund these things so we can have more of these large-scale events like Dance Marathon. Like that's an example of a thing we could have funded if we had money to still fund them. Tiger Burn, which is something we did fund. I think that's a fantastic type of event to fund. So that's the type of things that's one of the things I'd like to do. I'd also like to reintroduce the idea of the treasurer's manual, send it out to student orgs, be able to meet with student orgs one-on-one, be able to help them out because sometimes student orgs can't make the meetings that we have scheduled. So I'd like to be able to meet one-on-one. I plan to offer virtual meetings, but I'd really like to promote having in-person ones for all the organizations. So they really be able to ask questions in a more, face-to-face manner. It's better for most people. And yeah, I'd like to work better with Senate so that the actual Senate understands the process a little better because I feel like there's a big disconnect between what people think this is how the system works and how the system actually works. And so I'd really like to clear up any of that ambiguity between the two.
Yeah, you mentioned wanting to do more education with student organizations so that they know the requesting process and whatnot. How would you go about providing that education? I guess what steps would you take?
Right. So that's a really good question because it's actually a very difficult problem to solve. So I've been working on the ideas of how to do this. I think we should be requiring student organizations when they request funding, the person who requests the funds, or the person who went to the workshop, the financial workshop has to be the one who requests the funds. So that way, we have one person who goes and they handle all the different finances of the orgs. That helps ensure that one person can maintain the knowledge. Create a more simplified version of the codes for student orgs to read, so like a pamphlet or like a manual to how to do the process. Possibly even adding a few videos like on YouTube explaining how the process works. And then also having fixed office hours that people can come see me or talk to me and ask questions about the process. I think these are some of the things that would really help with the education process with student orgs.
Yeah. And one of the things you've mentioned is, you mentioned wanting to make sure that everybody understands the codes and that sort of thing. And then you've also worked on the finance committee and stuff like that, trying to address the problem of running out of funds and stuff like that. So I guess over your term, how would you try and work on the funding issue or, student orgs access to funding, that sort of thing?
Right, so student org access to funding. Right now, it's still in the work exactly how we're going to get most student orgs to show up to the treasurer's workshop. That's the first barrier to entry. They have to show up to the workshop. I'm kind of thinking that we'll reach out to the deans of individual colleges and we'll host workshops within that college area so that it's kind of in the same area everyone's going to be in anyway, instead of having it just Russell House for everyone. So have more split up ones and have them more specialized to each college. Of course, it's something that I'll work with my team, exact details on that. So that's one of the ways that I'd like to push that. What was the rest of the question? Sorry.
No, I think you answered that pretty much. Yeah. What would you say throughout your time on that committee? What would you say were the main, things you were noticing, whether it be issues, whether things are working well as far as funding goes within student government?
The finance committee.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. So the finance committee, the things that worked well. I think when people came in, they had majority of organizations generally had a good understanding of how the system worked. They were able to ask questions, and the finance committee chairperson we were able to answer the questions well. Very, very nice people. So the orgs were generally very happy, or relatively happy with the answers. Some, of course, some people weren't happy. Some of the issues I noticed were that a lot of times requests would get through to the finance committee stage before it was supposed to get there. Like the requests weren't finalized correctly. A few orgs get there, they didn't understand the process. Those are really bad. Again, the majority aren't like that, but those few small edge cases really can drag on a session, right? Because you have to go through the whole process explaining. A lot of times student orgs would make their dialogue requests for finance committee, so you have to talk to finance committee so we can make sure you have a good proposal. A lot of times they would request their meeting with us before it even got to our stage, so we couldn't see what they had. And so it was kind of sometimes that thing would happen, it would create a little bit of an issue in the finance committee. And then of course once the funding ran out, that created a lot of student orgs that were rather agitated about it, so those are some of the issues.
Yeah. As far as within student government, we talked a lot about the finance side of it, but is there anything else within student government that you would like to focus on fixing or improving?
Yeah, so I plan to still be heavily involved with the senators still in Senate, work with them on a lot of pieces. One of the things that I'm working on with a few senators is to continue to work on the rewriting of the code so that it's more understanding, because what's happened a lot is that people make amendments to section of codes and not really take a holistic approach and look at all the codes as a whole. So I'd like to continue. We've already finished trying chapter 3. I'd like to start on chapter 4 or 2 next and start just rewriting all the codes chapter by chapter with other senators, since I can't, of course, put legislation out, but work with them to make sure all these things are rewritten in a way that future senators can understand, and it leaves less, makes it more clear for the senators and students to understand what's actually going on here.
Yeah.
I'd also like to help with promoting student government a bit more, because a lot of students don't even know that it exists or what student government does. And so that's something that I think I would be able to help with. Even though it's more of a vice president role, I'm going to work heavily with Courtney with that role.
Yeah. So going off of that, one of the main concerns I feel like every year is how many students are engaging in voting and that sort of thing. So what do you plan on doing during this campaign season to, get students more engaged with student government?
Well, this campaign season, we're going to try to, we're not allowed to go into classrooms, so it does create issues. Now we're trying to go through rules to see if we're allowed to do mass emailing to students. So we're going to try to see if we can communicate to students that they should vote and why voting is important and all the changes that student government's made and how those are important. I know in the CEC, it's rather easier for me to do it in the engineering computing college because I've already got a lot of connections there. I'm pushing through all the group me's in there, all the chats and everything in the classes that I TA for, the classes that I'm in. But I'm still working on trying to work with the Elections Commission to see if that's even allowed to actually push campaigns. And because it's kind of difficult to get students to vote unless you have a face-to-face connection with them. Mm-hmm. And that's hard to do, especially on a scale of 35,000 students at this university. So, we have to make a decision on how we want to approach this kind of thing.
Right. What do you think students are looking for from student government?
I don't think a lot of students don't even know that student government exists or what it does, so they're not really looking at anything from it. But the students that do know about it, they kind of expect to see student government, represent the people, push legislation to make things that the students want to happen. So a lot of students complain about infrastructure. That's something that student government that's something they would expect to see student government, like the new proposed Russell House, or student union, sorry. That's something that a lot of students would probably expect to see out of student government, something like that, or having new academic buildings built. That's something they'd see student government to push legislation on, or new housing, stuff like that. I don't think the majority of students understand what it does, so it's kind of a disconnect that we need to work on.
Yeah. Why should students vote for you?
I think students should vote for me because I think I will handle the finances very well, because I've rewritten the codes, made it a little bit more equitable to distribute the funds towards all the different student organizations. I'll be a lot more transparent. One of the first things I'm going to do as treasurers, I'm going to make sure that we have on our website an actual page that shows us what the live remainder of the funds are, including the split funds between the 2 semesters, because we split it up in our new codes we've rewritten. So that's one of the things I'm going to do is we're going to make sure that gets done as soon as I get in office. Basically, have an actual live tally so students can see how we're spending our money, and then we can also see how much allocation is being put each week, and they can see it a reference to the actual allocation bill, so they know exactly where their money's going. And then I'd like to have a breakdown as well on the website of where does this fund go overall, right? And how much of it is from the student budget. I think that this is something it's important to have financial transparency, and that's kind of what I think students should vote for me.
Okay. Well, those are the questions I had. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you would like to mention to the student body now?
I don't think so. I think that's everything I have.
Okay.